Ladies and gentlemen, Bungle, hope you're doing well and I hope you're having a great day. Today we are going over Regiments. Now Regiments is made by Microprose, who, if you may be familiar with them, made a B-17 The Mighty Eighth, a flight simulating B-17 crew game that was kind of famous back in the early days of PC gaming. So you may be asking yourself, Bungle, what is Regiments? Well, Regiments is pretty much a real-time strategy game that kind of sandwiches itself in between WARGAME and Company of Heroes. In WARGAME, you're dealing with strategic aspects of micromanaging soldiers, micromanaging your resources, everything like that. And then in Company of Heroes, you're more focusing on your squads, basically your squad elements, your tank, crews, etc. In Regiments, you're pretty much focusing on platoon size elements. So now you're maneuvering, let's say, platoons around the battlefield, whereas in WARGAME, you're moving around larger size elements. And then, of course, when you're playing Company of Heroes, you're just focusing on squad tactics. This is what Regiment does. It focuses on platoon size elements. And of course, there's different types of vehicles they can use on the battlefield as well. You have the options of using light recon vehicles. You have the options of using tanks, main battle tanks. You also have the option of using light infantry and of course using mechanized infantry. Any other capabilities producing anti-air, using anti-tank, using artillery, indirect fires, and of course, unlike WARGAME, where you have the option to actually control aircraft in the airspace, you have the ability to earn command points to go put out actual attacker aircraft or use heavy artillery division assets on the battlefield. In my opinion, from playing Regiments compared to, let's say, WARGAME, which I'll be honest, WARGAME is a very, very hard, a very kind of high learning curve to play. Regiment still has that. Now, I would say the easier difficulty is tailored to newer players to the genre. So, of course, for those looking for a challenge, when you go and increase the difficulty, you're going to find that challenge. But for more casual players, yes, this is still kind of accessible to newer players, especially in this type of genre. Whereas Company of Heroes, of course, I can say that's very just down to squad tactics, and it's very, very simple in my opinion to play. It's kind of easy to learn, hard to master. My big fear is when I started playing Regiments is that I was going to run into the WARGAME issue, which WARGAME requires you to put a lot of research, a lot of time into the game so you know what you're doing, and really that was kind of going to be a big turnoff for me. But no, Regiments actually does not manage to do that. In my opinion, is actually very, very unique because this is basically focusing on single player. When you compare it to WARGAME, which is pretty much going to be the big comparison here, is that WARGAME, such as Warno, is focusing on multiplayer. So there really isn't that much single player aspects in that type of game, whereas in Regiment, actually it is focused on single player experience. You have the options, of course, of doing skirmish battles, but if you actually want to go and do kind of a campaign mode, you go to Operations, and Operations has a unique storyline. Basically what these operations are is a story. You start off with an operation for one faction of the Warsaw Pact, and then you proceed down to NATO, and you go back and forth as this story progresses, and it's actually very, very unique. The gameplay in each operation is basically broken down into phases as you go and achieve so many victory points from capturing objectives, capturing towns, defending objectives. You then will proceed to the next phase, and then if you complete that phase, you'll proceed to the next operation. So from my experience of playing it, I would say it's actually very, very fun. It's even on easy difficulty, and like I said, I'm not an expert at the WARGAME series. Yes, you're going to require you to kind of learn the game because it does punish you, especially if you try to just YOLO or try to rush out there. Or if you're trying to go and play kind of carefully, try to play, really passively, you're going to get punched in the face. Really, when you play the objectives on the different game modes, it does vary on your experience, and it does also kind of tailor to, hey, how do I need to play to get this objective done? Do I need to play passively? Do I need to play aggressively? One operation, I was actually playing very, very passively. I was kind of defending, whereas I should have been aggressive and rushed. That's the whole purpose of the campaign mode, was more of a blitz anyway. So I kind of learned and corrected my mistake and moved on. But yes, it does punish you even on the easiest difficulty, and from from my research, yeah, as you progress with a higher difficulty, it's going to be a harder experience. But from my experience from playing it, yes, you can use tactics. I mean, it kind of reminded me of Roost in a way too, because you can kind of go out there and hide vehicles and foliage and trees, and you have the aspect of using different types of vehicles like recon, like using indirect fires as well, and of course a resupply system. Whereas, hey, if my soldiers are out of ammo, if my tank's out of ammo, like it's going to be SLL unless I get a supply line set up. Same with having headquarters. You know, if I have a headquarters or I have a TOC that's near my vehicles or near my soldiers, they're going to perform better. Whereas if they don't have that, then they're pretty much going to be not performing that well in combat. And then you also have kind of, I would say, division level assets where you can call in different types of support, such as smoke. So if you need to do a screen to maneuver troops through an area, if you need to call in indirect fire, so like division assets like the artillery, if you need to call in air support, you can call in air support, as well as using different tactics like illumination rounds if it's a nighttime map, so you can get some kind of cover and reveal different targets. It's actually a very, very unique experience. Now, I know some players may get upset that you can't really just use aircraft like an A-10 or an Su-25 all the time. You have to call it in as you earn command points, so you can go and call them in from holding objectives or taking out tanks, etc. But in my opinion, I think that's fine. I mean, playing Company of Heroes, this works the same way. Playing Roost, Roost, you could, earn your aircraft and call it in. Same with WARGAME. But in my opinion, it's not really that much of a deal breaker for me. You do have the capabilities of actually using helicopters, and you have to be tactical when you use them, of course, because anti-aircraft can shred them and destroy them very, very quickly and very easily. So overall, my experience with this is that it's a more casual, turned down version of WARGAME, and that's actually what I've been looking for. WARGAME, in my opinion, is very, very hard to get into. It's very hard to master, and once you master it, you'll like it, but it's definitely very, very frustrating and has a very niche player base, and it's more tailored to a multiplayer audience, whereas Regiments is tailored to a single player audience, and hence the AI is actually pretty good in my opinion. It's pretty competent too, because it will notice if you don't really have soldiers protecting an area, it will try to go in prone and try to push and then envelop your forces that way. So overall, I would actually recommend picking this up, especially if you like Company of Heroes. If you kind of like the WARGAME or WARGAME series, and you kind of are interested in more just single player focused genre, then consider picking it up. I think Regiments overall is actually a pretty good game. I would highly, highly recommend maybe picking it up, checking it out. Right now it's currently on sale on Steam since it just got released, like 10% off. I think it's like $25. But honestly, it's not a bad game. It's actually pretty fun. So let me know what you think down below. Other than that, I hope you all have a great day. Thanks for stopping by. Take care.